Okay guys, so today we are going to map our client's eyebrows, and I'm going to show you how to do that step by step. So the first thing that you want to do is grab your caliper. We're going to start by using the metal piece of our caliper and divide the face into two hemispheres, and I use the tip of the nose and the cupid's bow as my reference point. The cool thing that I do with my caliper is use the metal tip to leave a slight indentation in the skin, and that helps me to know where I should lay my string with my ink to make my lines for my mapping. So here you just see me gently gliding my caliper into her skin, the metal piece, and pressing it into her skin to make an indentation. You do want to make sure that you're in the middle of the face so that your brows are the same distance from the center, and then from there I'm going to get my ink pad and my string, and I'm going to just simply follow that indentation. Here's a pro tip: make sure that you leave the space between your thumbs close and hold your string tight when you're making your lines. Another pro tip is to always use a white ink pad. I've used black, and guys, for some reason the black ink pads, they just leave things so messy. The clients are scared, and so I just find that using a white ink pad works better. Okay, so step number 2 of mapping is figuring out where the brows should start. And as you can see, the tip of my caliper is lined up with the center of her nostril, and I'm also going to where her hair is most dense to get my second line for my mapping. I'm going to do that on both sides. Again, don't forget to hold limited space between your fingers so that your string does not roll and you have a nice crisp line. From there, what you can do and should do is use your caliper to measure that center line with that line that begins the brow so that you can measure and get that same distance on the opposite side. So here's another pro tip. Dip your caliper, the tips of your caliper, into your ink pad and just simply tap from the middle line to the other side and leave a mark for the opposite brow, and you'll be able to line your next line at that same point. That way your brows will start at the same distance from the center. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying here. If you don't, reach out to me and I can explain it more. Here I'm just simply going in and making my line number 2 on the opposite side, and again I use my caliper to make sure that I was the same distance from the center. And again, if ink gets anywhere that you don't want it to be, just make sure that you gently wipe it off. So keep some Q-tips and some cotton rounds handy. Okay, so now that we've gotten lines number 1, which is the center, and lines number 2, which is the beginning of the brow, done, we are now going to go in and figure out the thickness of the brow. So again, we should go where the hairs are most dense. I usually go and do the bottom line first, and I want to make sure that my client's chin is tilted up and high as possible to make sure that that bottom line is straight. Okay, and then I'm going to also go to the top because this is going to determine how thick her brows are going to be. Okay, and remember, we're going to go where the hair is most dense. There's no need to take this line all the way across the face just yet, but we will come back and do that at the very end. Okay, so our next step, guys, is to determine where the arch should be, and what you need to do is make a straight line from the corner pocket or the side of the nose, intersect with the pupil, and lay that line back diagonally, and that should show you where the arch should lie. Okay, and again, if you simply press the metal portion of the caliper into the skin, it will make an indentation for you so that you can just simply grab your string with your ink and trace that line. You'll see me do that here. So again, I'm just following that line, keeping my string straight, okay, and that is my arch on her right side. We're going to follow those same steps on the opposite side, okay? So again, you're going to sit the tip of your caliper into the side of the nose, and you're going to intersect with the pupil and lay that line back. Again, once you make that indentation, get your string and simply trace that indentation. Okay, so our next step is to determine where our tails should stop. So we're going to take our caliper. We're going to sit that caliper, the metal portion of it, at the side of the nose. We are going to scathe the top and bottom lid and lay that line back and make that indentation. We are going to grab our string with our ink and trace that indentation. So this line is going to tell us, hey, do not go past me, do not pass go, do not collect $100. Do not make your tails longer than this line, because then you're going to create a shape that is unpleasing or unappealing for your client. We're going to do that same thing on the opposite side, like such. So now you can see our mapping taking form and taking shape. We have determined where our brows are going to start, how thick they will be, where the arches will be, as well as how long the tail should be or where they should stop. For our next step, we're going to determine her arches and how high they should be. What you need to do here is decide which side you want to start with, left or right, and walk that line all the way over to the opposite side, trying your best to keep that line straight. So now we've determined where her arches should rise. Some people may have a higher or lower arch, and that's okay. Next, we need to determine the bottom arch. So what I'm doing here is measuring the thickness of the front of her brow, and I'm taking my caliper to the top of that arch that we just created, that line, and I am making a dot. As you can see, that's going to leave a dot on the bottom arch, and that is going to help me get the thickness of her brow. So in general, the beginning of the brow and the top and bottom arch, they should both be the same width, okay? Our next step is to determine the plane or the line that both brows should sit on. So what I'm going to do and what we're going to do is go to the very bottom line that we've created at the beginning of that bottom arch, and we're going to take that line all the way across. We're going to gently walk it all the way across to intersect that outer tail line that we created when we determined where the tail should stop, and we're going to do that on both sides, okay? From here, we are ready to plot our points and start to structure our brows. So as you can see, I'm taking my string and I'm going from the top of the brow, the beginning of the brow, to that top arch line, okay? And then I'm going to do that same thing on the bottom of the brow to the bottom arch. So that is going to sculpt the beginning of our brow. Notice how that looks like a rectangle. Next, we're going to go from the top arch down to that outer line for the tail. We're going to do the bottom arch the same way. And doesn't that look like a triangle? That is exactly what it should do. We're going to do that same thing on the opposite side. So beginning of the brow to the top arch. And then the bottom of the beginning of the brow to the bottom arch. Again, that should look like a rectangle. And then we're going to go from the top arch down to that outer tail line, flowing with her hair, okay? Do not create something that does not need to be there. Same thing, bottom arch to the tail, and you can see now how her brows are fully formed and fully shaped with this easy mapping. The last thing that I'm going to do is just customize a little bit, okay? Because basically we have a rectangle and a triangle, and we need those things to blend. We need them to flow with the face. This is just a white pen or a white marker that you can use to help you with brow mapping. And I just want to remind you guys that mapping is to help you get into the ballpark. You will have to come back and do your customizations in the arch area, sometimes in the tails. Make sure that you hold the skin taut whenever you are trying to customize the brow and create a nice crisp brow line for your clients. This service can go, this technique, this mapping technique can be applied to any service. You can apply it to waxing, you can apply it to tinting, whether we're talking about dye or henna. You can even apply it to permanent makeup if you're trying to, again, create the best shape for your clients. Okay, so those are our newly mapped brows. Make sure that you follow us at beauty_culture at IG. If you have any questions or want to reach out, we do offer mentorships as well as extended classes. We do high school cosmetology courses. Make sure that you reach out to us, and we'll see you soon. Good luck.